to help us to quarantine some of the criminals who are killing the people in West Kingston. I am asking in Kingston Western, which includes St. Andrew South.
Police division.
I'm asking the leader of the opposition to support measures that give emergency powers to the government to control the crime that is happening. Now, it is the leader of the opposition who in a previous presentation said that we have an epidemic in crime. I have been saying that for years. I have been saying that we have an epidemic in violence and an epidemic in crime. And those who are under the illusion that somehow ordinary measures are going to control the problem that we have are doing the rest of Jamaica, the people who suffer and who are victims of crimes, we are doing them an injustice. Madam Speaker, this year, well, the murder rate for last year versus the murder rate of the year before, we would say that we have flattened the curve. We managed to move from a high of 1,600 to 1,300, and we have been in that range over the last 3 years. We have always been clear to the country, truthful and honest, that there is no switch that can be flipped and overnight the murder rate will go down. We have always been true to this country to explain that after decades of underinvestment in our national security apparatus, that this administration has come and laid out a plan to secure Jamaica, not a one-year plan, not a two-year plan, not a three-year plan, a decade of planning to increase our border protection and security. Now we know when the planes are flying. We know who is coming into our water. You know, let me not say too much. You don't worry about that. As I tell you, I'm not saying too much. Madam Speaker, never before in the history of this country has our security forces brought so many cases before the courts. And, Madam Speaker, what this country needs to appreciate is that we're not only just bringing in the gang leaders and the gangs, but we are doing it at the same time whilst we are decreasing extrajudicial killings and activities of the security forces. We, Madam Speaker, are not doing it because there is income. Strict directives have been given that this government does not want to be tarnished and looked upon internationally as violators of human rights. The leadership of the police force understands that there has to be a use of force policy that is equal to or if not better than some of our first world partners. The average policeman is getting that message that we can use force without violence to our people. It is a long road that we are on to win over the average citizen to the kind of policing that we are doing. Many Jamaicans still see the police as Babylon, and we see it in their interactions in the law and order issues, public order issues day to day. but the police understand that they have to respect the citizens, they have to act with restraint, and they have to be professional. And that is the standard set by the leadership of the police force under the direction of this government. And whilst doing that, we are arresting more criminals. You know, they're bringing them to justice. It is no comfort to say that after a murder has taken place, we have found the suspect. And we are building cases. The murder has taken place. But the fact is that the investigative arm of the government, of the security forces, is far better than it has ever been in the history of this country. So, I want to say, Madam Speaker, that yes, every Jamaican would be concerned about the level of crime, as the leader of the opposition puts it, the spike. And we would want to be able to respond with the special measures. But we're not relying on that. We are going to continue our plan to secure Jamaica, which includes increasing our border security. I mean, if I were to disclose the... But clearly you would have seen that interdiction for drugs has increased. Clearly you would have seen that getting the guns coming in at our ports, that has increased. Madam Speaker, you don't bring in 50 members of a gang by forming a squad to go out there and shoot them up. You bring in the members of the squad of the gang by increasing your intelligence gathering capacity. That is what the then opposition spokesman on that side was talking about. The government must increase its intelligence gathering. That is what we have done. The biggest hypocrisy that is being displayed here, Madam Speaker, is the request for more presence in communities that are affected.
Madam
The
Speaker.
biggest hypocrisy, allow me to speak, member.
On a point of order.
There is no point of order here.
On a point of order.
If you're asking me to yield, I have to yield, but there is no point of order.
On a point of order. On a point of order.
Are you asking me to yield? You're asking me to yield.
On a point of order.
No, but there is no point of order. What is the point of order?
I'm a state Prime Minister.
You have there are two persons standing over there. So just one person.
I've raised an
And remember what the standing order says about a point of order. So it has to be a point of order. What does it, what you are standing and the leader of the opposition is standing? No.
Sit down. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Prime Minister.
But it doesn't matter how high the emotions run. Two people will not stand at the same time.
I agree. And Madam Speaker, when somebody rises on a point of order, the rules and convention is that the person on the other side sits to hear what the point of order is. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has described as hypocrisy the idea of asking for a presence of the security forces in an area where there's a flare-up of violence. There's nothing hypocritical about asking for that. That
member.
is...
No, no.
That's misleading the House, and it is unparliamentary, in my opinion, language to ascribe to that very basic and understandable request the idea that somebody is being hypocritical. Yeah.
Speak. If you speak as well.
The reality is...
I'm directing a question to the member, and I'm hearing several voices on this side.
The reality...
What is the point of order?
The point of...
All we need to find out what is the point of order. That's all.
The point of order is to ascribe the motive of hypocrisy, which is to somebody who is putting forward the idea that there needs to be proper measures in place to protect the population.
This is not a point of order. Madam Speaker, he's making... Madam Speaker, I'm on my feet. I'm on my feet.
Sit.
I'm on my feet. No, don't tell me stupid. Madam Speaker, that is not a point of order.
I am already dealing with the matter.
Member, please have your seat and let me finish.
Can feel the same time.
Let me finish my point and then you can speak.
Both can feel the same time. Both can feel the same time.
Because of warming.
Members.
Yeah.
Members. May I remind this House, all of us, that the public, the eyes of the public are on us. May I remind you that, members,
she hasn't asked me to say.
The children are now with their tablets. Everybody is watching us. Two wrongs do not make a right. I do not expect the leader of the opposition business to stand again for the second time while his leader is on his feet. And believe me, on this side, I understand what we're doing, and I have asked the member what is his point of order. And as what you have said, I do not rule as a point of order.
Very well, Madam Speaker, you are the arbiter of the standing orders. I accept your ruling. The point, though, is the courts have ruled that those measures that were being employed are unconstitutional, and until the Court of Appeal rules otherwise, they're not an option on the table for the government. And the population of the country has a right to expect that there will be a response to a spike in crime, and there's absolutely no reason why the security forces cannot be deployed in those areas. You do not need a state of emergency to do so. And that is to pretend otherwise is to mislead the House, and to describe somebody who asked for that type of protection as a hypocrite. If it's not a breach of the standing orders, it is still unparliamentary, in my opinion.
Member, I know as a leader of the opposition, you have a right to place your things, but having ruled, and you have been very cooperative in the Parliament so far, and I expect you to do so. And if I rule on a point, you have raised a point of order, I have said I have ruled it is not a point of order. I believe in your personality and the way you have conducted yourself. I would have expected you to accept my ruling. I respect you, and if you respect the speaker, I'm going to ask you just to accept the ruling. I know that I'm here. So I have ruled there is not a point. What are the same?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't propose to go much further other than to complete my response to the Leader of the Opposition, which response was interrupted whilst I was in stride. But, Madam Speaker, the point that I was making was that there is a call for greater policing, greater presence in communities that are affected. The measure that immediately increases the capacity by more than 50% of the security forces to have additional, as we would call it, boots on the ground to assure residents in communities. The measure that we have employed to do this is the declaration of the state of public emergency. And in that measure, certain communities have grown accustomed to having increased police presence and military presence supporting. Without that measure, it is going to stretch significantly the resources of the JCF, and indeed it will require them not to be able to spend the time that they would, the length of time that they would in various communities, because other communities are also calling for them. The point that I was making in addition to that is, maybe purely by coincidence, is that the persons who are calling for increased presence of the security forces in their communities are also the same persons who are saying the measure cannot work, and we do not support the measure, and indeed we will vote against the measure. Now, Madam Speaker, the classic definition of hypocrisy is to say one thing and do another.